Hi, everyone. So welcome back. We've had so many fascinating sessions, and here's another one that I'm really looking forward to because Michelle and I were just chatting backstage about the Guild and what it can do. So I'm going to be listening to absolutely everything. Michelle is the Chief Marketing Officer at the Guild, and we'll be talking about lessons learned from over 20 years of professional community building. So I will hand it over to Michelle now, and we'll do Q&A at the end where I'll come back on. So if you've got anything, Michelle, throughout, just pop it in the Q&A tab and we can pick that up. Right, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sophia. And hello, everybody. And thank you so much for inviting me to my very first commsHERO. I've been watching the hashtag for 7 years now, and I'm delighted to be here with you guys today. So thank you. Please, I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm sure that once I get it going, I'll be absolutely fine. My name is Michelle Goodall. I am CMO at Guild, and here to talk about online communities and the lessons I've learned from the last 20 plus years of building professional communities online today. I'm happy to give this presentation to anybody who wants it as well. So please do connect with me on Guild, DM me, and then I'll be happy to send that to you. So some of you may know me as Green Wellies on Twitter, and I'm actually wearing my green jumper today. Can't do that when I'm green screen filming, so I get the best out of it. You might know me from my time on the social media panel at the CIPR, or as a 70 at 70 member of the CIPR as well. I've been a marketer and comms professional for 23 plus years. And actually I was head of digital at Lexis Public Relations in the early 2000s. And before that, I helped brands with all types of digital engagement at the digital PR agency 4DC. I was at eConsultancy and I was a social media and community strategist, lecturer and a trainer there for 15 plus years. And actually, for anybody who was part of eConsultancy or still is, it actually started as a professional community first with a website attached to it in 1999. And actually, digital marketers, including myself, would meet in person at roundtables to discuss our specialist topics. So whether that was SEO or online PR. And then the content was written up as reports, and the conversations then continued on a forum on the website. Now, actually, eConsultancy pivoted to social media at around 2006. And actually, social media was quite kind at first, but when advertising and algorithms hit, and then LinkedIn abandoned its answers and also its groups, publishers and medias like eConsultancy had spent lots of time creating communities on these third-party social media platforms, actually started to struggle to reach the audiences that they'd built up, obviously without spending heavily on advertising and doing that regularly to re-engage them. And this is one of the reasons why Guild was set up, actually, to allow businesses to set up simple to use GDPR compliant groups and online communities without the ads or without the algorithms. So Guild is a mobile first messaging platform which has been purpose built for creating professional groups, networks and communities. And I'm sure that you'll hear more than once that commsHERO has its very own community that you can join in Guild. And I think Lee's going to put the link also in the chat as well. And here it is. So please do join us and do join in the discussions on the Guild group and the commsHERO community on Guild. So today I'm going to be sharing how businesses and organizations are adapting their marketing, comms, sales and networking using communities. And broadly, I'm going to cover what actually is an online community, what are the different types of professional communities, how online communities are different from social media, what the business case is for community, and finally, the secret sauce, what you guys have come from, top tips for community success, how you can successfully build and sustain an online professional community. So I'm going to try something here. Let's kick off with a quick poll, and you'll see on the right hand side there's a poll functionality. Let's figure out where your clients, your prospects and your stakeholders are going to be for at least the next 3 months. In August this year, we asked our Guild members what their working plans were for the rest of 2021, and actually how frequently would they be in the office for and not working from home. So what do you think? How many of them said that they'll be in the office on average 0 to 1 days per week? Was it 26%, 53%, or 71%? Please vote now. How many said that they'd be in the office an average 0 to 1 days per week? 26%, 53%, or 71%? Let's have a look and see what you guys are saying. I get to vote myself, but I know the answer, so I'm going to skew it. Okay, let's give you a couple more minutes. This is like watching a brilliant game show. Thanks, guys. Oh, it's going up and down. What percentage of Guild users will be in the office 0 to 1 days a week for the rest of the year? We'll probably ask them when it comes to the end of the year how much longer they'll be 0 to 1 days a week in the office. Okay, so I think that's probably enough to give us some statistic relevance here. But the answer is actually 71%. A staggering 71% will be working from home almost exclusively. Now, given that Guild's membership covers all industries and sectors, this is quite revealing. Most people simply aren't going to be in the office or at trade shows or networking physically for at least another 3 months. So clearly, if you're targeting professionals and you haven't adapted your marketing communications and business development to include community and online networking, then you'll need to consider this in the short term, but also in the long term as well. So let's have a look at some basic definitions around community, because I think there's a lot of bandying around of the term and the terminology, but I think it's a really good idea to try and be very clear about what a community actually is. So what is an online community? Well, a community is a social unit or group of people who share something in common, whether that's an identity, values, location, a shared goal or purpose, shared roles or interests. And communities share a sense of place. Now, whether that's a geographical area or even a virtual or digital platform. So it follows that online communities are groups of people who share something in common, and they also share a digital platform where they gather and communicate. Those digital community platforms can include the likes of Guild, but also Insided, Choros, and others. And communities can be made open and discoverable to a wide set of members, for example, like the commsHERO online community on Guild, or they can be private and non-discoverable and much more niche. For example, like Manchester Metropolitan University's Digital Alumni Group, again on Guild. Now, there are broadly 5 types of online community when we think about categorizing them. Communities of play, communities of place, product, practice, and purpose. Very handily, 5 Ps. A community of play will form around a common interest or a hobby, and it will often cover topics such as sports, gaming, arts, music, and also things like collectibles. Now, typically, these communities are developed by passionate fans, and they're found on consumer community platforms such as Discord or Facebook groups. An example would be the unofficial Manchester City Discord community. But there are also brand-developed communities of play, such as the highly successful Lego Ideas community, which has spawned some really incredible fan-created buyable Lego sets, such as Friends Central Perk or the classic typewriter. Communities of place bind members together because of where they live, where they work, where they visit, or where they spend a percentage of their time. Now, communities of place became even more active and wonderfully supportive to people who were struggling most through lockdown during the pandemic. Again, these tend to be found on consumer platforms such as WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups, such as my local Walthamstow community support groups. B2B communities of place tend to focus on physical or virtual events and meetups. An example of a B2B private online community of place that also combines community of practice is the Marketing Society's prestigious coffee house community on Guild. The Marketing Society CEO, Sophie Devonshire, and her team have created a really relaxed but focused coffee house discussion environment for global members. Now, it is a private space for members only, but we tend to find that they dip in and dip out, and their motivation is to meet fellow senior marketers from around the world to exchange ideas and expertise. The next two community types are a community of product and a community of practice. Members of a community of product tend to be focused primarily on discussing or learning about a specific product or maybe even a product range. Now, they're really popular in consumer industries like beauty and fashion, where members can benefit from being part of quite a loosely knit fan community, and they receive member benefits via things like exclusive content, offers and events. An example of this is Sephora's Beauty Insider community, which actually now has over 5 million members. In B2B, technology and SaaS vendors have a very mature approach to communities of product. For example, SAP's developer communities and Salesforce Trailblazers communities have over 2 million members, and they've actually been building them for the past 5+ years. Trailblazer for Salesforce is a global movement in over 90 countries, and the communities comprise all types of stakeholders, including developers, partners, employees and staff, and customers, and it's absolutely a mega B2B community. Now, Salesforce Community Cloud powers a lot of their communities, but they do also host communities on Guild and Slack. In B2B, groups of professionals will be drawn together over time by mutual support or benefit, and these are more likely to be communities of practice, focusing on a discipline or a skill where practitioners in a specific industry, sector or role can connect and grow and learn together. Now, some of these communities can be really broad, for example, marketers as a whole, and others very, very niche. For example, specific channel or partner marketing specialists. The CIPD and the PRCA are examples of membership associations who have created online communities of practice for members, and they're both using Guild. And trade media, interestingly, are moving towards a community-led model to move readers and subscribers to much more valuable members. Examples of this are specialist media brand, The Lawyer, which has a Guild community for specifically for legal practitioner subscribers. Now, of course, all communities should have a purpose. Why create them in the first place? Whether that purpose is improving professionalism through a community of practice, bringing people together around a passion for a sports team in a community of play, collecting really valuable insights and feedback in a community of product, or maintaining momentum for an event like this in a community of place. So what do I mean by a community of purpose, which is our last P? Well, communities of purpose should ultimately have a really big and bold ambition, and actually an end goal in sight and a high purpose. These communities should ideally have a target date or a time frame when the community has achieved its goals and it actually should no longer exist. Many communities of purpose align people around achieving a single goal, and the time frame could be 12 weeks, 12 months, or even a lifetime. Now, whether that goal is to eradicate single-use plastics, for example, or to hit diversity targets for UK CEOs, or even to stop the causes of a specific disease and to support those living with it in the meantime, such as Shift MS or the Multiple Sclerosis Society and their community forums. A community of purpose, as a B2B example that you may have heard about, is FORT, Furlough or Released Talent. Now, this is a community of purpose that we set up at the height of the pandemic to support people in comms, PR, marketing and digital who've been furloughed or released. Now, with the sector recovering, we might look to close this community when all of the members have found jobs. And finally, here's how we categorize the different types of professional communities based on the objectives of the organization, the brand, or the individual or the collective who set them up in the first place. The first is customer support and service. Now, these are often help forums where the objectives are to save money or help people serve themselves much faster. The next are concierge communities. I love that word, concierge. They're usually created as high-touch client service spaces where key accounts can be super served. And the key objective here is customer retention. Then we've got thought leadership communities, which are very popular. They're communities of expertise in a specific area. For example, behavioral science in marketing or communications. And the objectives here are lead generation and brand building. Then we have value add communities. What do I mean by this? Well, they generally add value to a subscription, membership, training, or an event. And the objectives here are retention or renewal, customer satisfaction, and maybe product or service differentiation. Next up, we've got executive peer groups. Now, these are often created for senior leaders in an industry for access, influence, networking, and connections. And these are usually smaller, high-value peer groups, for example, like an advisory community. And the objectives here are generally influence, access, and helping to make decisions much more quickly. Sponsored communities are usually created by media events or media event brands and monetized by sponsorship. And again, objectives tend to be financial, so new or incremental revenue. And paid communities. Now, this is where members actually pay to belong to the community. And we've got a couple of really good examples on Guild. The excellent Agency Hackers and also Simon Andrews' Fix community for digital advertising and e-commerce and media specialists. And the objectives here are revenue. And finally, our eighth different type of professional community are peer-to-peer communities. Now, there's often no direct marketing or commercial agenda here, and these tend to be self-organizing. The objectives here are self-help, mutual support, and also personal benefit. Now, as I said in the introduction, and also backstage as well, social networks, they can bring together communities, but actually there is a difference between social media and online communities. So I want to explain why social networks and social media like LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are not truly regarded as community platforms by community strategists, and also why it's increasingly difficult to use social media effectively to engage with communities within a marketing or comms strategy without spending big. Now, community platforms have been around since the early 1970s, and the rise of social networks such as MySpace, LinkedIn, and Facebook, Mixi, etc. in the early 2000s meant that the idea of online or digital communities became attractive to many more organizations and brands. They were able to create, brand, and engage with large communities of fans and followers in Facebook and LinkedIn groups, MySpace, Orkut, remember that one, or even Bebo. But social media platforms are ad-funded businesses. Providing software and community platforms for free isn't a long-term strategy that will keep shareholders happy. Now, I love TikTok. LinkedIn is great. Twitter is great. And I've built my career on figuring out how these platforms work. They've allowed me to build my professional profile and my professional brand. I have wonderful contacts and networks because of them. But LinkedIn and Twitter are just that. They're networks and they're not communities. These platforms don't allow people to build proper communities that are moderated, private, and have high quality discussions and debates where the data is yours and not theirs. The data ultimately belongs to the social platforms and they are able to monetize that data from you. And social networks, business models being ad funded, where LinkedIn used to allow people to build communities on groups, now they no longer support it. They want you to build company pages. On groups, the moderation features are terrible, and most LinkedIn groups are full of spammers and spam posts, or they've been abandoned by their hosts and members. Now, LinkedIn is great, and its business model is also to sell to business development and salespeople, something called Sales Navigator, to reach out to prospects. Now, as a CMO, on average, I get 20 unsolicited LinkedIn connections and what I call BD spam on LinkedIn a day. It's actually a much bigger problem for me personally than sales emails. In fact, a sales email is much more likely to get through to me and be read than LinkedIn spamming. And it's not just me who's grumpy about this. Research by Censuswide in 2020 stated that 28% of all professional LinkedIn users feel that it's full of spam, and this is a growing issue for LinkedIn. Now, community takes time, effort, and resource, so you do need to create a business case. And here are some helpful thoughts about the business case for investing in community. Now, community purists suggest that community isn't a part of marketing or communications. Now, I'm not a purist, I'm a realist, and I believe that in marketing-led organizations, marketing and communications is embedded in all parts of the business, and that good marketing and communications relies on customer or stakeholder insight and proximity. The CIM's definition of marketing is it's the management process responsible for identifying, anticipating and satisfying customer requirements profitably. Now, we coined the term community-based marketing, or CBM, a year ago, and there's a free guide linked to it on here. Some people call CBM community-led growth, but essentially it's the practice of building professionals together around a shared practice or area of expertise to create closer and more valuable relationships with prospects and also with customers. And to simplify how CBM works, let's apply it to a very simple marketing and sales funnel. In B2B, marketing and relationships are typically significantly lower in volume, but much higher in value. So B2B communities tend to be smaller and deeper than the mega communities you'll see in B2C, for example, like the Adidas or Peloton communities. At the top end and the awareness end of the marketing funnel, you'll typically have publicly accessible campaigns, content, albeit aimed at particular audiences, that's amplified with paid media and marketing on LinkedIn, Twitter, blogs, online PR, etc. And you want this awareness building to turn into interest from potential customers who that you can then qualify using lead scoring into prospects. The interest, consideration, and desire stages are perfectly suited to community-based marketing and community building. For example, you might have prospect or customer groups that are in their tens, hundreds, or possibly even thousands of people in size that are broken up by topic, interest area, geography, or seniority. Now, you want these groups and communities to be big enough to have natural momentum, but not so big as to become too noisy. In your communities, you engage with your prospects who are likely to build their own conviction that you've got the expertise, the authority, the credibility, and the reputation to be a good choice as a supplier when the time is right. So, like community, brand building is a long-term play. Now, sales and marketing is often focused on customer acquisition, but much of the value and profit comes from having loyal, repeat customers. Community-based marketing can be used to increase loyalty and customer advocacy by super serving key accounts and providing this concierge levels of service or support, or you can create much broader customer communities where members get as much value from each other as they do from you. And in these communities, you get to hear about their issues and their challenges firsthand. So this is fantastic market insight to apply to your messaging, your content, and your campaigns. And customer advocacy will also lead to referrals. So it's a really effective and low cost form of awareness and new customer acquisition. Now, we get to work with a lot of marketers. So this slide summarizes the main reasons why B2B organizations are investing in community right now. Uncovering insights, they're much less noisy than other channels, and they help you get better cut through with prospects and clients. They drive inbound leads. They create mental availability and also brand awareness. They'll improve your conversion rates. And there are Guild community owners like Bowen Craggs, who are corporate digital comms specialists, who are reporting the actual value of leads and sales from their communities. They help with client retention, upsell and loyalty, and they're scalable customer service channels. Now, we actually do CBM ourselves. We practice what we preach. So here's an example of a Guild community and community-based marketing. At the start of the pandemic, we created a peer community for events owners called CREO. It was set up to provide a place to discuss event venue insurance, crisis comms, and what type of event tech people were using. And it really quickly grew to 500 members and now has more than 1,000 members, and it pretty much self-sustains. Now, arguably, it was the good and right thing to do at the time, but the results for us have been great in terms of client leads. We've developed brand ambassadors, we've identified partners, we get product insights and much more besides. So if you're ready to take the plunge and create a professional online community, then here are a few tips for success. And this is really what you've come from. First, never create a community without having a clear aim and a purpose. And you have to have a compelling why. Your why is the reason for getting people together and sustaining that community. A community should never just be about connecting and collaborating. Usually in communities of practice, it's about helping each other, sharing insights, connections, and working through pains together. Now, Kevin Williams is host of Building Inclusive Cultures on Guild, Kevin Withane, and he's really clear that his community why is to bring people together with lived experience of discrimination, allies, and getting leaders to come together to help build a tool set and also develop skills to make progress in creating a culture of belonging wherever they work. And here's a tip. A lot of people ask their communities when they set them up, what would you like this community to be for? Don't ever start your community with such a loose question. State your aims at the start, and your community can always evolve. Your community why can evolve over time. Now, handily, there's a mnemonic called potato that can help you to think about your community why. What are the fundamental drivers and motivations that are going to create the right conditions for your community to succeed? And if you're considering building a community, then you should look for these and seek to harness them to give you the best chance of success. For example, the P of potato is passion. Is your why a passion? Do you have a cause or even a movement? Is your why that there's a fast-moving opportunity? For example, artificial intelligence, the metaverse and NFTs are spawning communities of people trying to get their heads around things and trying to understand the impact of the opportunity. Is your why maybe a threat to the existence of something? And if so, could pulling a community together combat that challenge and help overcome it? Is your why access? In fact, is your community a way to gain access to individuals or groups that might otherwise be very hard to reach? Is your why therapy? Is it about creating a safe space where you and others can open up and give and get support from others who properly empathise? And I know I'm in a few of these types of communities as well. Is your why origin? Is there a collective value in being connected to a place of origin? For example, that might be a university or even something like a work alumni group or community. The next tip, and I think the most important thing, is that people are more important than technology when it comes to community. And the best communities have the best community hosts or managers who do all of these things that I've listed and more. In fact, I would say, and I've gone on the record in a couple of podcasts recently with Laura Sutherland and Asif recently, that comms pros are perfectly placed to be fantastic community strategists, community managers and community builders. And it's all to play for in community. It's a bit like SEO, social media and influencer marketing. Please don't let this opportunity pass you by. Now, returning to people, the Marketing Society community is hosted by its CEO, Sophie Devonshire, and her team support her with moderation and other posts. Handing your community over to a junior is a recipe for failure. It's not hard to do community management or community moderation, but some people have the soft skills required in bucket loads. And I don't know if you'll hear Dan, but Dan Holden here, who manages the CIPR's inside community, is an example of someone who has those skills, again, in an enormous amount. Now, I always get asked, what's the critical mass for my community? And I'm sorry to say that the answer is it depends. So size isn't everything. What you're trying to achieve is. For example, the right size of community might only be 10 executive advisors or investors, or it could be 500 client prospects in a thought leadership community. Customer communities can be small, and I'm going to say it again, concierge. A big tech brand who I can't name runs a concierge community of its 50 top clients on Guild. And then it has lower tier customer support communities in the hundreds of thousands on other customer support platforms and communities. And finally, understand that all members in the community are individuals. Communities and people are not homogenous. People are complex and they have different motivations for belonging. And in community strategy, we talk about understanding and adapting to intrinsic and extrinsic motivations. And often in professional communities, people display exactly the same behaviours as they would do in trade events. Most communities will over-index on lurkers, as they're called here in this MPG model, highlighting one way to segment a media or publisher's community members. Now, I don't really like the word lurker. I prefer reader. Lurker has negative connotations. But lurkers or readers, whatever you call them, these are people who join a community but don't engage, and they'll always be in the majority. You'll also have a vocal minority, and these will often be like the speakers at an event or the extroverted people who ask the questions and network at coffee breaks. And then you're going to have your community elders, maybe those people who are slightly jaded or throw snark, ambitious early careerists looking for mentorship and also to form their own opinions. People are complex, so the trick with community is to adapt your content and your conversations to work for different member types. For example, things like polls can encourage juniors or people who don't like to raise their head above the parapets to engage. And some senior members, for example, will only thrive on really gnarly debates and discussions. So you've got to be prepared to mix it up a bit. Now, if you never set up a community and only ever join them, then please do consider how you can be a good community member. And there's a short guide on our blog about how you can be a valuable community participant. But the single community member rule that I live by is to always give much more than I take. And then you'll always have credit in the bank. People remember when you help, when you guide, when you provide feedback, and it accumulates. And it will come back when you need it later, whether that's a job reference or support in other ways. And we all know the type of person that we personally value in any type of community environment. So be that person, don't be a spammer, and don't let the well run dry. So I'm going to leave you with 10 tips to get you started in successful community building. The first one is to have a clear and stated purpose, a why for your community. Community won't succeed if senior people are not involved in your community. Number 3, the community manager and the host role is very important. In fact, much more important than the technology itself. Number 4, despite what some people say, you don't need loads of community content to power it. Conversations are at the heart of engaged communities, not content. Number 5, an event is not a community. It's only one manifestation of the underlying community that exists. Number 6, don't expect people will just get on and chat and network when you start a community. You have to nurture these things. It's like hiring a venue and inviting people in and asking people to show up and telling them to get on with an event. So there has to be a level of nurturing at the start. Number 7, when you start a community, go for density, i.e. a single community or very few groups, and then you can create sub-communities later. Number 8, social media and beating the algorithm has made us communicate with engagement bait. You don't have to do this in non-algorithmic community platforms. And in fact, low quality discussion and low quality engagement is a trap. Demand high quality engagement and discussions from the start and you'll reap the rewards. Number 9, I know myself, community is extraordinarily rewarding, but it's really hard. Churn feels personal. When somebody leaves, it feels terrible. It can feel lonely at times. You can feel like you're talking to a brick wall, and it can take quite a long time to succeed, which can be quite tiring. You can also have the negative network effects in your community. For example, as a community grows, it can feel much less intimate. And finally, if you're struggling with naming your community, then do think about naming your community well, because that will establish your purpose and your why. And if you're struggling for a name, we've got lots of naming ideas on the Guild blog. So our blog is rich with lots of resources to help you achieve success in building communities. And again, the clients who are on the enterprise plans also get a success manager and customer success manager who will provide training and support. And if your interest is piqued in a community and you want to join a community, see how they differ from social media, then please do join the commsHERO community. We also feature some discoverable communities on our website as well. So go to the Guild directory and see what takes your fancy, whether that's sustainability, non-executive directorship, the future of work, digital marketing pioneership, or even if you want to see CREO in action. So I think we've got a few minutes left for questions. And please, if there are no questions, feel free to connect on Guild or LinkedIn or Twitter. But if you do connect on LinkedIn, then please don't be a Linda. And sorry to all you lovely Lindas out there.
Thanks, Michelle. That was really interesting, really informative. Lots to take in there. I've just signed up to the platform, so I'm going to have a little look around there.
Brilliant.
And I'm
That's
waiting.
One of my KPIs have been achieved. One more person has signed up today. Thank you.
So I think I'm just waiting for approval from Kate or Asif to have a little snoop around and comment on things. So I will be doing that today. We do have a couple of questions. I had one and Lee had one, but I think you've answered it nicely. So I'll tell you what it was anyway, but you did answer it. Was there might be some people out there thinking, oh, another social media platform from a comms point of view, I've got to manage another one. What's the difference? But you did answer that really well about it's a community and it's not just another social media platform. So the question that we have from Tila is, hi Michelle, love Guild. Are you finding that the online fatigue many are suffering from has seeped into online communities?
Yeah, it's across the board. So Tila, if you're in CREO and other places and spaces, everybody is talking about actually, the reality is we're all back at work. It's event season, it's silly season, everything is going on. There's so many demands on our time. And I know in the last session, there were conversations about that as well. There are only so many minutes in the day and, only so many events that you can attend, only so many channels of communication that you can have open. So yes, that sort of fatigue definitely has seeped into online communities. But I think one of the things that you'll see as a community member is that you don't have to be there and you don't have to be present constantly. So you can dip in and you can dip out as it sort of suits you. And that's the sort of, I think, I think one of the real sort of positives of having an online community and not having those algorithms that you're constantly having to beat, not going back into your Twitter feed and going, oh, damn, I've missed that conversation, and not feeling overwhelmed when you go in with your feed, that actually you can go in, you can go to the various communities, and then you can find the conversations and the threads that you're interested in. So yes, it has seeped into online communities. We're actually not seeing a dip in member numbers going up and also engagement, but certainly across the board, the conversations that we're having with people is that they're just, struggling just with so many different channels of communication at the moment.
Yeah, and I suppose it's prioritizing as well, isn't it? What
Absolutely.
do you want? Like you said, your objectives. What are you trying to achieve? Which platforms? It's like any other platform where you're told we need to be on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn,
Why?
everything. You think,
what's your
why?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The reality is, and I hope that came through. I mean, I was talking about community-based marketing, but you never do any marketing or communications without thinking, what are my objectives? Who do I need to reach? And then you start to think about channels of communication. Then you think about your messages and your campaigns, etc. So, the reality is it's exactly the same. And community, I don't want it to become like social media 15 years ago, where people go, I've got to get onto this new great thing. If it doesn't suit you, and if it doesn't suit your, your stakeholders, your prospects, your clients, your customers, your publics, it's not for you. And people can run perfectly good communities on things like Facebook groups, for example, but that doesn't wash for things like professional communities, because you're just handing over that data. And I think some people will disagree with me, but you know what? I'm going to die on that hill, because for so many years I have been talking about the power of social media, but actually when it comes to ownership around your community space and your platform, not so good for that. And we can see that even mighty people like Matt Navarro are saying, wow, I'm just not getting visibility in my content anymore, thanks very much to that algorithm, Facebook. So yeah, there's another couple of questions, so shut up, Michelle.
Yes.
Go on to another one.
No, that's great. And I was going to say, actually, because I know we talk backstage, but it's more like a library function as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when people have had those conversations, you think, oh, who said that? Where was it? You can go back to that and join in and take bits of information that you need. So I think it's great. I'm looking forward to having a nosy at it later. So we have got Lee's put this in on behalf of Dan, who says, any tips, Michelle, on moving existing members from a platform like LinkedIn over to Guild?
Yeah. So platform migration is always really difficult. And I kind of use the analogy. You found your local pub, okay? The beer is a little bit warm. The crisp selection isn't great, but you're comfortable here, okay? Because that's where we go to. And actually not all communities will, be migrated successfully, but sometimes you do have to migrate communities because there's a specific need. One of the reasons for people moving over communities from professional communities, certainly from WhatsApp to Guild, for example, is non-GDPR compliance. And one of the reasons for people moving LinkedIn groups over is that they're just not supported by LinkedIn anymore. And as I said earlier, full of spammers and all of those different things. The reality is when you move people over, Dan, you're always going to get people who go, not another platform, not another channel. I am not going to be part of this. So you're always going to get, some wastage in terms of pulling people over. But actually by moving people over to a platform where it feels comfortable, where you're getting engagement again, where the quality of conversation goes up, actually then that begets new members as well. You're never going to pull everybody across, but it's, a migration plan is really important. You need to communicate why you're moving people over, what the advantages will be, what the rationale is, show them what the behaviors kind of look like and why it's different and why it's better. And then, practice what you preach and continue to show and evidence through public channels. These are the kind of things that we're talking about in this community. And, kind of get people back with FOMO, Cialdini's weapons of influence, use them liberally in your communications.
Brilliant. I think we've got time for one more from Nafisa. Nafisa says, great session, Michelle. We'll be listening back as there's so much to take away from it. I find that I sometimes lurk or dip in and out. Does that actually add value to a community, or does that ruin it for others?
Ah, Nafisa, you're not a lurker. You are a reader, okay? And I really want to get rid of that word lurker because it has negative connotations. If you're coming in and if you're reading and if you're taking, you know, something of value from that community, brilliant. Do think about what point you can give back as well, because there'll always be an opportunity, and it's really hard to put your head above the parapet, but there'll always be something whereby you have something to give. So just look for those opportunities. You add value because you come back, you read, and you're participative.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I know Lee's put the link in there if anyone does want to join the commsHERO chat conversation on Guild. So do that.
Come and join the community. We'll be happy to see you there.
Can we use our emojis to show Michelle some love and how much we really enjoyed that? There was lots to take away. And something I just wanted to mention, because we've done competition, I think, and we'll come back to that later, but I just wanted to say there is an after party that is free for everybody in commsHERO. I knew you'd like this, Michelle.
Yeah,
not just commsHERO. Yeah, it's for everyone. Well, we have on Thursday at 8 o'clock. So we've got the famous comedian Arthur Smith, who was from Grumpy Old Men. Yeah. He's doing a little comedy set, and then we have a mix from the legendary Hacienda DJ, Graham Park, and it's all for free. So have a party, just get people around at your house now. We're allowed, and
have a rave.
Have a party. Yeah,
we'll commsHERO rave.
So there's a link. I've just popped it in. Everybody just needs to register, but like I said, it's free. So yeah, thank you. And we will be heading to the social lounge. So if anyone wants to jump on the chats or anything like that, please do take photos, tweet them, because we have got competition stuff. And if you don't enter, I'm taking all this stuff home at the end of the week.
Wow, you've got to be in it to win it. Got to love a Sharpie. Thanks, everybody.
So,
love you, commsHERO. I'm going to stick around for 15 minutes and then I have to get on my lecky bike. So thanks again for all the love. You're great.
Thanks, Michelle.